The name Iron Mike once carried the weight of a siren, a sound that made crowds hold their breath and opponents swallow fear before the first bell rang. Mike Tyson was never merely a boxer, he was a phenomenon, a living storm that made the ring feel like a battlefield before anyone even stepped forward. His rise was not simply athletic, but atmospheric, a force that reshaped the mood of every arena, turning anticipation into dread. Yet beneath the shock waves of knockouts and the glare of flashbulbs, there was a boy whose life had been carved by absence and hardship. Now, at 59, he is no longer the terror in a corner, but a man looking inward, wrestling with memory, age, and the meaning of legacy. In the quiet after the roar, the true fight has become one of self-reconstruction. Brooklyn Beginnings, a childhood in the shadow of survival. Born on June 30th, 1966, in Brooklyn, New York, Tyson entered a world already stacked against him. His biological father disappeared early, leaving a void that shaped the boy's sense of self from the start. Another father figure arrived, then vanished as well, and the only constant became his mother, Lorna, struggling to keep her children alive amid grinding poverty. They eventually settled in Brownsville, a neighborhood known in the 1970s for its violence and instability. Hunger and danger were daily companions. Tyson's childhood was marked by invisibility. Oversized glasses and a lisp made him an easy target, and his attempts to fit in only deepened the sense of isolation. In that environment, survival did not feel like a choice, but a necessity. The world offered him no soft landing, so he learned to brace for impact. Pigeons and the first hardening of a heart. Amid the chaos of his neighborhood, Tyson found an unexpected refuge on rooftops, where he raised pigeons. Those fragile birds became symbols of safety and tenderness in a world that offered little of either. He fed them, spoke to them, and trusted them with secrets he wouldn't share with anyone else. But one afternoon, a neighborhood boy killed his favorite pigeon, and the loss hit him like a physical blow. For Tyson, the moment was seismic, an event that crystallized a vow not to feel powerless again. Grief did not turn him inward, it turned him outward, transforming sorrow into anger. The boy who once sought comfort and gentleness began to channel his pain into aggression, determined to command respect rather than beg for it. The rooftop sanctuary became a memory, replaced by a hunger for control. Juvenile detention, the first turning point. Trouble escalated quickly. By age 13, Tyson had been arrested nearly 40 times, caught in a cycle of petty crime and street violence that seemed almost inevitable. The world around him offered few alternatives, and he responded to chaos with more chaos. In 1978, he was sent to the Tryon School for Boys, a juvenile detention facility in upstate New York. The halls were cold and unforgiving, and the silence weighed heavily on him. He waited for his mother to visit for months. She never came. Yet within those walls, a shift occurred. A counselor named Bobby Stewart noticed Tyson's raw power while watching him hit a heavy bag. That discovery led to an introduction that would change everything. A meeting with Cus D'Amato, a trainer who saw potential where others saw only a troubled kid. It was a turning point that would begin the transformation from street fighter to champion. Cus D'Amato, the father figure who built discipline. Cus D'Amato did more than teach Tyson how to throw punches. He taught him how to believe in a future. In a dim gym in Catskill, New York, the 14-year-old boy was told he could become the youngest heavyweight champion in history, something no one had ever dared to say to him. D'Amato became mentor, guardian, and father figure, providing the structure that had been missing his entire life. Training was brutal, pre-dawn runs, endless drills, and punishing sparring sessions. But discipline replaced chaos, and the boy's aggression found a purpose. The peekaboo style he learned sharpened his raw power into a strategic weapon. Fear, which had once paralyzed him, became fuel. In the controlled environment of the gym, Tyson began to understand that strength without structure was destructive, but strength guided by discipline could be unstoppable. The ring became a place where he could finally channel his pain into power. Meteoric rise, the world's youngest heavyweight champion. Tyson turned professional in 1985 at the age of 18, and his debut ended in under 2 minutes. What followed was a blur of knockouts, 15 fights in his first year alone. Opponents crumpled beneath combinations delivered with terrifying speed and precision. On November 22, 1986, at 20 years old, Tyson defeated Trevor Berbick to become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. He unified the division soon after, capturing the WBA and IBF titles, and by 21 he was the undisputed champion. His 1988 demolition of Michael Spinks in 91 seconds cemented his legend. Tyson wasn't just winning, he was redefining what fear looked like in the ring. The world watched not only for the victory, but for the moment of impact. The instant when a fighter realized he had underestimated a force that seemed to move faster than human reaction. The cracks appear, losing guidance and the first defeat. Even as victories mounted, the foundations of Tyson's success began to weaken. Cus D'Amato died in 1985, just before Tyson's rise reached its peak, and the steady voice that had guided him was gone. His manager, Jimmy Jacobs, later died, and trainer Kevin Rooney departed as well. Into that vacuum stepped influences drawn not to discipline but to fame and fortune. Training camps shortened, nights grew longer, and the structure that had made Tyson invincible began to erode. Though still dominant, his focus flickered. By 1990, undertrained and emotionally adrift, he faced Buster Douglas in Tokyo. The upset shocked the world. Tyson fell in the 10th round, crawling for his mouthpiece as disbelief swept through boxing history. The defeat wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. It revealed that even the most fearsome fighter could be undone by the absence of guidance and the weight of unchecked ego. Prison, the quiet reckoning. In 1992, Tyson was convicted of rape and sentenced to prison. The sentence forced him into a world far removed from the glamour and noise of fame. For 3 years, he lived with the consequences of choices that had been building for years. Prison became both suffocating and clarifying. Stripped of his identity as a champion, he confronted himself in the silence. He read extensively, converted to Islam, and began to reflect on the anger that had guided much of his life. The experience forced stillness, something he had never known. It exposed a truth that success without discipline becomes self-destructive. When he returned to boxing in 1995, he briefly regained titles, but the aura had changed. The fighter was still powerful, but the myth of invincibility had been broken. The world no longer saw him as a force of nature. It saw a man with flaws. The ear-biting incident, frustration without restraint. Tyson's return to boxing was marked by moments of brilliance, but also by growing volatility. The infamous 1997 incident against Evander Holyfield, when Tyson bit his opponent's ear, became the most visible symbol of his inability to contain frustration. It was not just an act of aggression, it was a public breakdown, a moment where the inner turmoil spilled outward in a way that couldn't be ignored. The incident shocked fans and critics alike because it revealed something deeper than anger. A man still fighting the same battles he had fought as a child. The ring, once his refuge, had become a stage for unresolved pain. The spectacle of it all made the tragedy undeniable. Tyson's aggression had been transformed into self-sabotage, and the world watched as a legend became a cautionary tale. Wealth and collapse. The quiet destruction of excess. Tyson earned over $400 million across his career, yet by 2003, he filed for bankruptcy, drowning in debt exceeding $20 million. The collapse was not dramatic in the way his knockouts had been, but it was far more devastating. Lavish spending, poor financial management, and ongoing legal troubles drained his fortune. Mansions, exotic cars, and entourages became a mask for insecurity rather than a cure for it. In losing everything, Tyson encountered a truth more humbling than any defeat in the ring. Identity cannot depend on applause alone. The lights that once made him feel invincible no longer mattered. The silence that followed was heavier than any crowd's roar. Without wealth to shield him, he was forced to face the man he had become. Love, loss, and the long road to renewal. Tyson's personal life mirrored the turbulence of his professional career. His marriage to Robin Givens in 1988 collapsed quickly under public scrutiny and emotional strain. Years later, he married Monica Turner, with whom he had 2 children, but unresolved trauma and infidelity eroded that union as well. The most devastating blow came in 2009 when his 4-year-old daughter, Exodus, died in a tragic accident. Tyson described the pain as indescribable, a loss that transformed him more deeply than any championship ever could. It replaced fury with humility and forced him to confront life's fragility. In the years that followed, he sought therapy, sobriety, and stability. He married Lakeha Kiki Spicer, and together they built a quieter family life centered on their children. The man once feared for destruction became respected for honesty. Conclusion: strength reimagined today. Tyson's estimated net worth sits between $10 and $20 million, far less than his peak, but built on wiser foundations. His homes are no longer monuments to ego, but spaces for family and reflection. Material excess has given way to measured appreciation. He advocates for mental health awareness and supports youth initiatives, using his story as a warning and a guide. His influence endures not because he was unbeatable, but because he fell and rose again. The myth of Iron Mike has softened into something more compelling, a flawed man willing to confront himself openly. At 59, he stands as proof that true strength is not measured by how hard you strike, but by how honestly you rebuild. The storm that once terrified opponents now seeks peace within, and perhaps that is his greatest victory.